Okay, another insane episode of Cubby's Thoughts here. Doing Depot 23. So, yeah, I think this one will be much shorter than the other ones I've done. I don't think I have that much to say or add to um the other parts of the run except for um let me close Discord. Except for the warp. So yeah, let me bring up. First, we can watch my run, and then we'll go from there. So I am doing this in 2.2, wide and normal. So 2.2 in cruise control as well. And I'm playing on NTSC. I probably did half of this grind on J and half on NTSC. And I don't think I did anything on PAL. So I usually just kind of cut this first cinema whenever. I think I was kind of just memeing and not paying attention, so I didn't cut anything. When Spicy got his 23, he said he kept music on and he would cut it when he heard like the first snare go off. So, and I think Sean John did something similar with a music cue to where he knew his pace going into like the first gate that you open. So if you want to get something, if you want to play with music on and make sure your pace is okay up through that gate, you can do that and just cut at the same time every run. Otherwise, I don't think it really matters, but you have to watch at least a little bit of the opening cinemas to build speed. So, yes. Okay. Usually, if I'm like really trying hard, I have my stick in like the perfect position or a position that's immediately turning me towards this corner. As you can see in this run, I'm just I'm streaming, so I'm kind of just chilling. It's kind of crazy. You can play this one handed up until you need to press B to open the gate if you really want to. Um, yeah. So ideally, you have your stick already set so that you're gonna turn immediately and go towards here. So you can do it however way you want. If you want to have it like the look down starting immediately, or you could turn like right immediately and then set the look down. Up to you. Yeah, pretty standard. I'm assuming you've watched Zach's tutorial and Pogo's tutorial. I think they go into like talking about these lines, but yeah, essentially I'm just cutting this corner and then I'm gonna cut this corner. And you can cut this corner. You can turn even sooner than I did. I think I did think I lost a little bit of time, but yeah, going towards this gate. Um, yeah, I don't have really much to say. When I was first doing this grind, I was like, you go past this crate, and then I was like setting another line to the corner so I could like sharply get around that corner. But I don't think you necessarily need to do that because, um, you don't have to take this that sharp, because unless your stick is like perfect, um, you can essentially just take a somewhat straight line from this previous crate, maybe turn a little bit in, and take a turn that isn't too sharp and still be fine. Because if you take it so sharp and then you don't have a stick that can turn that sharp, then you just kind of go like out and then turn, so you don't really end up saving that much time. So yeah, so I think being off the wall a little bit is fine. Yeah, looking down, there's this dot here, which tells you that like the turn is about to be, you're about to turn. Really sharp turn up against this wall. Now in terms of setting up for the warp, there something I learned like very late, I think, or I don't know if necessarily learned, but started to like wonder, is about the going from looking down pretty hard to slowly looking up to create kind of optimal lag for the warp. And it honestly might be smoke and mirrors and fucking witchcraft and voodoo, I'm not sure, but this was kind of something I added pretty late and felt like it maybe worked. So I would, if I had to do this again, I would start, I would definitely be doing this. So essentially, like, from, I don't know how far away you need to be, but like obviously looking down is helpful. You don't have to look straight down, but having pretty heavy look down, and then yeah, coming off this wall, I'm, compared to all the other runs, I am like looking down for much longer. I don't think you necessarily have to do this, but I really started playing with the look down before the train, or before the warp. Started really experimenting with that. So coming off this wall, I'm turning pretty sharply, but if you turn too hard, you'll see like the crate over here, I think, this blue kind of crate. And essentially there's like, in terms of the patterns on the ground, you kind of can see this light patch as like a square or like a rectangle. So like I'm going perpendicular with this line of light on the ground. Essentially, I see it as kind of like a rectangle. So I'm going like perpendicular to it. In a lot of runs, you essentially are looking, people look up a lot sooner and set their kind of red dot for sooner, or their dot for sooner as well. I think this amount of look down so late is an outlier. So yeah, like I'm looking down up until this point. And I'm honestly, the quality of this recording is kind of dog shit, so I apologize for that. Does this help? I don't know. Okay, so I'm setting my line for, or my dot for like this this graffiti, like this red graffiti down here. It's like blue, then red, then wall. Sorry, that's opposite. It's like red, then blue, then wall. Or like a orangish yellow, I guess. But I'm setting it like in the blue. And in terms of if you're setting it early, then like if you're setting it like essentially when you come off this building, your dot would end up being like at this line, but when you're further back. And then obviously like as perspective works, as you get closer, your dot is gonna be um, higher. But yeah, I'm essentially like setting with like this kind of blue. Um, I come at this wall pretty sharp, and I think ideally I wanted to be a little bit further left. Um, but I got here pretty sharp. So I do, from how I understand it, there's the one turn method and the two turn method for this. So I started with two turn for 24. Then when I started going for 23, I was doing two turn, and I then switched to one turn, and then switched back to two turn. So really, if you want to experiment with whatever works best for you, whatever you feel most comfortable with. I can't really speak to the one turn method that well because I didn't really, I definitely played around with it and ended up finding that I liked two turn better. So yeah, so I'm doing two turn, and I don't know if there's a name for it, but I'm doing like a shortened two turn. So you see some two turns are like, and I'll show Tyler's run. Tyler P's run is like, you're using this line right here, down here, and you're using it as like how you're going to, like where Bond is going to be. So it's like, you turn once and you want to be like literally on this, like going parallel with this line until you think you're at the end, and then turning again. Whereas I'm essentially turning, and then more like halfway to 3/4 of the way, I'm turning again. So it's kind of like a shortened two turn. So I get to like this corner. Obviously, you don't want to get stuck. So and then I'm turning, and I'm turning so that I am like parallel with this line and this wall. If you turn and then you end up being like not parallel, you end up being like going out too far, it's just gonna like feel bad and feel like it just doesn't really work. So I feel like keeping a tight parallel line with this is best. And really you can go in and like practice and like overturn and like see what shoves you up against the wall, and then slowly turn less and less to where it's still a tight turn, a parallel, you're still parallel with this line, but you're not running into this, and you're not like doing this loose line, so you end up going too far wide. Yeah. Okay. In terms like of visual indicators for this, I took a lot of guidance from Sean John's runs. So essentially, it felt like when this kind of big, or when the wall was like out of view, there was the turn again. Like, okay, this is out of view. Now it's time to hit the stick and turn. And when I did, like, when I was grinding a lot of this, I found that I I didn't really know what I needed to look at while it was all happening. So if you need a visual indicator, again, this might just be something that is personal, like what works for you. Like I know Spicy said his indicator was focusing on hitting the train shot. And he found that focusing on hitting the train shot put him where he needed to be for the warp. Whereas I found that kind of threw me off. And for me, it was like, okay, I went parallel with this line. I don't see this wall anymore. Now it's time to turn again. Um, yeah, so in terms of the timing for everything, the first mistake I was making in terms of timing when going for 23 was I wasn't hitting A soon enough. So the way it works is like you can't press Z and then A like right one after another, because the A input will just get eaten and your pistol just won't go away. So I definitely advise playing with learning to press A as soon as you can without it eating the input and not putting your gun away. So yeah, so you might have a bunch of practice runs where you hit Z and then you like immediately press A and the pistol doesn't go away, and then next run you hit A a little bit later and then a little bit later until you find like the groove of how fast you can press A after hitting Z. I definitely think, yeah, pressing A like as soon as you can is like ideal. And I think that it was the main thing that made 23 difficult, at least for me, compared to 24. Because with 24, I was just shooting like very early and not really worrying about the train shot like very early, and so I could press A like whenever I wanted to, essentially. So I could press it really early, which is like the correct thing to do, and it would work for 24. But when I needed to hit the shot as well, you know, you can't just press Z like really early. Like you can't press it right now, because then you would just hit the wall. So yeah, so I think it's important to learn how quick you can press A after pressing Z. And if you feel like this isn't really something you need to like worry about, like you're already getting pretty, you know, you're hitting the lag spike when you need to, and it's like it's not a problem for you, then that's okay. But I definitely felt like for me, what I got used to for 24 was just like shooting Z or shooting really early and pressing A like not that soon after pressing Z. Whereas the Z and A inputs were much tighter for me for 23. So I had to unlearn pressing Z too early and pressing A like much later, and learning to press Z at the correct time and then pressing A as soon as I was able to without that input getting eaten. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, pressing A as soon as possible seems to be like the best thing, or the thing that like the missing piece for me. And there's like a number of factors that I can probably mention like at the end for the missing pieces for getting 23. So, but that was definitely the biggest realization for me, was being able to press A as soon as possible. So, yeah. So, anyways, so another thing I think worked for me in terms of sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Okay, yeah, in terms of the inputs, you know, let me slow this down actually. Okay, so I'm approaching it, I'm turning right on the stick. Now I'm not hitting the stick anymore. I'm hitting the stick now. And like right before I'm gonna let go of the stick, I'm gonna press Z. So by the time I become like perpendicular with the wall, the shot's gonna come out. And that's definitely part of that pressing A, or pressing being able to press A as early as possible, is pressing Z earlier than you would expect or would need to. So pressing it pretty early, even while I'm still like turning, like on the very back end of my turn, I'm pressing Z. So right now, I'm just about to let go of the stick, and I'm pressing Z. So Z. And again, if you need to go into, put cheats on and just practice hitting Z and then hitting A when you feel like you can, like as soon as possible, will train you. So it's like, it's hard to explain in terms of timing, but turn Z, A. If you watch Zach's tutorial, he shows you when you need to press A. Like he has like even the audio of him tapping A. It's kind of like later in his video, so I found that most helpful for like figuring out exactly when. But it's like halfway up this ramp essentially. Um, I will also leave a link to Weister's video where he goes into like the level editor, and it'll show you like exactly where the gap is that you can warp through, which is just like another way of kind of visualizing where you need to aim here. In terms of, where you want to like hit the door. But what helped me for at least for 24 was wrapping myself around this pole, this gray, side standing up. Was kind of the thought of like wrapping around it. But yeah. So right now, like So let me go back, sorry. In terms of like your lines, you know, you're getting to like here, then you're going to turn and go parallel with this, you know, tan line on the ground here and this wall. So turn to go parallel. And then we're going to turn and essentially go towards like here. It's like you barely like walk up onto the elevated surface and yeah, and then turn in. So some runs, depending on how you do it and how you set up, in terms of like the one turn, you can get in from over here, and so you don't even like see this door. And then in terms of like the two turn methodology, you see like more of the door. By the time I'm going parallel, I'm seeing like half the door, like this arrow. And I try to kind of set it up in terms of like how much of this door I can see. I've tried to do it that way in the past, but I felt like that wasn't like the factor I needed to really focus on, because you can kind of turn depending on where you are. Like if you take the second turn too wide or like pretty wide, like this turn while you're turning, if you end up like stopping here or maybe a little more, yeah, you could like adjust. You know, you could just turn further in if you needed to. So it's still kind of like, so if my line, if I didn't end up turning in, I'd hit like here. And then kind of like right before you're going to hit the wall, turn in slightly. So yeah, like I would hit like here-ish. And sometimes like what I found helpful for visualizing was like bringing up a run on my like computer and just pausing it like where, like at like this point, and just visualizing like this is where I want to end up by my second turn. Yeah. And then obviously when it goes through, it's kind of hard to prepare yourself, but I know that at least for me, after getting like 10 or so warps, that kind of jump scare factor like wore off for me. So it didn't really become like something of nerves. It was just like you go through, you got to be ready to press B on this. And you can press B from pretty far away. Like here. And you kind of just want to be like, I'm like kind of where that yellow arrow is. Like you would think maybe you would want to be like as close to getting in as possible, like on the left side, but I forgot who it was, but I've seen, you know, advice that's better to be like on the middle and maybe a little to the right, because the guards can kind of be dickheads. So and by this point you're listening for the the door sounds. Let me see. So, it's going to start like with low, like, this might be weird to try to explain, but like, it starts with like the low tones of like the door beginning to be opened, and then it'll start doing like the same high pitched noise that you need to like keep track of. So essentially, how I would count. So it did its low sounds. Now it's doing the high ping, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turn. One, two, three, four, 5 turn. And it's kind of maybe hard in this one because let's see. One, two, three, four, 5 turn. And that's something you can put cheats on and just practice too. And that's the reason I prefer to play with music either off or just on like turned down, so I can listen to the door being open. Yeah. So really what's going through my mind as soon as I like realize I'm through is, press B, press B, press B. Okay, I know I've pressed B. Okay, now it's time to listen to the door. And while you're listening to the door, okay, so you hit the door. While you're listening to the door, look out for objective A completing, because if it completes, then that means you hit the train shot and the guards are coming out. So, yeah. Press B, press B. Okay, now it's time to listen and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turn. While that's all happening, visually just keep track. If you see A pop up, okay, I know I hit it. I'm going to be able to go right through. Or, ideally. I didn't have any trouble with guards trolling me. I've seen that can happen. Luckily, I didn't see any of that, so I don't really know if I can advise on that. But yeah, if you didn't hit the train shot, then you got to be ready for opening the door ASAP and trying to kind of mini warp it and get on as soon as possible and hope for a 23. I was able, if you hit it, I was able to just get right on. So, okay. Let me pull up one of Sean John's 24s. This warp is kind of what I used. Like his kind of setup is what I generally try to follow in terms of 2 turn Yeah. Besides like the instant look up here. And I was essentially just like literally putting this on replay. And actually, this is at Moam when he got it. I was also watching this too, even though obviously it's not ideal with being on the top left of the screen, but I was just like watching this part over and over again and trying to emulate it. And he kind of like, so he's on this side here. He doesn't look like fully up when he comes off the wall. He's looking like, yeah, he's not looking fully up. And then he kind of looks up, the slow look up. I don't really know why it works exactly, but yeah, that kind of slow look up. And I kind of take it to the extreme in my run, but it feels like that slow look up does something. And I was talking to Jimmy about it, but we're thinking maybe it has to do with like loading, like maybe not loading these guards or not loading something over here if you like look down from very far away, or you look down from far away enough. So like by the time I'm looking up here, maybe something's not loaded over here. And then as you hit this turn, maybe you're loading stuff. But that I really can't speak if that's actually true or not. But kind of the reason I started thinking that I should start doing the slow lookup was like Pogo mentions it in his tutorial. So yeah. And then I saw Sean John like sorta does it. Not in this one, but like when he comes off the wall, he is looking like, I don't know how you would describe how it's not planar essentially. So and then does kind of a slower lookup adjustment. So yeah. So now I think I'll just show some runs. This is Fletcher's, so I guess this one and JD's would be good examples for following the lines before the warp, because they get 23 without the train shot. So obviously very clean runs. Maybe a slight stuck at some point, but didn't look like it mattered. Very sharp onto that wall. It's interesting. So he presses. He's looking pretty far down when he presses B too, like from back here. And gets on. Usually if like you're trying to get on and warp it, you kind of like ride the edges of, the doors, but it looks like he just gets like directly on where you need to. And this is this is JD's. Okay. This one also has no train shot, so is pretty good to emulate in terms of the lines before. Yeah, it seems like he is pressing B from like out here and then, yeah, getting in on like the very middle opening here. Which definitely way easier said than done, because once you hit that warp, it's kind of jarring to say the least. So this is the 2-turn that I was. This is kind of the one that you're going like. You're turning when like the line ends. At least like in your mind, I guess. And I kind of had a lot of success like doing this and hitting the train shot pretty consistently, but like I went pretty long without hitting a warp. I don't think I hit a warp at all when I was like trying to copy this exact run. So I think what you come up against is being able to hit A quick enough. Yeah. So I found that turning a little quicker for me worked, but on the second turn. But you can also, yeah, try to emulate this 2-turn. Seems pretty textbook. Whatever that means. In terms of 2 turns, it seems like a really good one to follow. Tyler's, that is. This is aces. Yeah, so when he comes off the wall, not an immediate look up yet. Now looks up. I think his is 2-turn as well. Yeah. And you can see his second turn is like he gets pretty wide here. Like on my run, this arrow is barely showing. So really, you just essentially just adjust for that on your turn in. And he also does something kind of interesting where he turns and he's also like looking down too. Like you see, he looks down at the last second and goes through. So you can also add that little look down into like the last part of your turn in if you feel like that, if that might help you. This is Chris's. He does like a really interesting like wide 1-turn. Does this have music? Yeah, it does. Yeah, so comes off the wall, looks up, and then he adjusts a little bit wider. And then essentially he goes past the wall and then hits like a very sharp turn and shoots. So you can also try this and then just really try to copy exactly what he does. But I don't think I tried this specific turn for the grind I did. This is Eric's run. I feel like I couldn't do this without I couldn't do this video without putting Eric's run in here.
Oh my lord! Oh my lord! Holy shit!
Yeah, so he kind of comes off, and then he looks up kind of pretty late, and he's coming from it like pretty far to the right. It almost is like a one turn setup, but yeah, slightly a two turn, but coming from the right here. This is Pogo's, so his tutorial is for the one turn coming from like the right here and doing the warp. So you can definitely like try this out and see if it works for you. If you would rather do one turn and come like from the right, like essentially like once you are done with the turn or with the shot in the turn, you can't even like see the rolling door. And then yeah, you're coming like so far from the right. So I didn't really like get it or understand that, so I just stuck to two turn, but definitely an option if you want to go that route. Yeah. So I am wondering if it's like common knowledge that people come off this building and then like look up somewhat later. I wasn't really doing that for like most of the grind, and I probably should have been, so maybe people already know why this works too, but anyways. Yeah. So what else did I want to say? Yeah, so really the main things that I think we're like missing for hitting like this warp or whatever, essentially what worked best for me is pressing A really early. That was kind of like the big missing piece for me, is pressing A really early. I think also, you know, when you come off this wall, like looking up later, not like coming off the wall and then immediately looking up. A slow little look up. I thought that being like really against the wall was like best, but I don't know if you need to necessarily be right up against the wall. Yeah. We also kind of, so we were, a lot of us were going for this during league, and so we had like, we talked about trying to figure out like what makes it the warp more consistent, and Sean John's like warp frequency was like really high, so we were trying to like figure out, you know, like what is he doing correctly that makes him warp so often. And one kind of theory we had was essentially the turning ability of the stick he has. So you know, like when you use a stick for a while and it kind of gets worn down, or it like doesn't turn as, you know, sharply, that can actually be a good thing for the so 1, 2 turn. This turn in, if you have a stick that doesn't turn as hard, it's possible like you can have a stick, this is at least like our theory, is like you can have a stick that turns like just the right amount, because he said his stick, he was jamming it to the right as, you know, as far as he could, and it was giving him like this perfect angle for warping. So that is something to keep in mind if you have a really sensitive stick. it's possible that when you do this turn in, you're turning like the angle in which you're turning is like too hard, too far to the right. So that is something we were theorizing, but I don't really know if there's, proven merit to it, but that's something we were thinking about. Also, like a couple days ago before I got 23, I was playing around with 16:9 resolution and playing in like full in cinema. And our thought was that when you make this second turn, the resolution causes you to like load more of something, but I don't really know if there's any merit to that either. So in terms of like actually doing the lines, it feels like you can see a lot more in your corners when you're doing 16:9, and at least on the monitor I'm playing on. So that could just be monitor specific, I'm not sure. But I figured I would just at least mention it. Like when you play 16:9 and full or cinema, it feels like it's way, way laggier here. So we were wondering maybe if that, like adding more lag would cause you to warp more, but I never really got used to how much lag there was for like lining up where I needed to be for this warp. So that might be something worth looking into, but really, like, I was playing on 16:9 and then I just switched back to normal and then got the warp like not too soon after that, or not that long after switching back, I should say. Yeah. Is there anything else I need to say? Yeah, make sure your lines are like, yeah, definitely do not, you're gonna have to like get a bunch of runs to the warp, and definitely do not like slack on these lines. I kind of am in this run, funnily enough, like ironically enough. But behind the scenes, I have a few 24 dupes because I hit the train shot and I hit the warp, but like I was just not being as precise as I needed to be for these warps. So, or for with these lines. So you're gonna have to do a bunch of runs that die at the warp. But don't get lazy with your lines beforehand, or you're just gonna have to keep playing. So, yeah, I think that's all I want to say. Okay, also, yeah, real quick, depending on how hard you turn off this building here, will show like, will put you might be, if you turn really hard off the wall, you're gonna be like on the left here. So just make sure that you turn, you might have to turn to do the parallel to this wall before you get to the wall, if that makes sense. So like if there's just a straight line from this corner going off, if you're to the left, you might have to turn sooner to get onto the parallel line. Otherwise, if you turn like right when you get to here, you're going to be like far out here, and it's going to fuck up your whole thing. So yeah, shoot. Press A as early as you can, as early as the game will let you after your shot. Obviously, you need to hit the shot, but pressing A early is really important. If you have a really sensitive stick, that also might be an issue for you. You can try the 1 turn or the 2 turn, whatever you feel is better for you. I think that is all I want to say. So yeah, feel free to hit me up in Discord if you have questions.